Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new expanded deck profile. Today we're going to be looking at a pile of cards I've put together for the expanded format. I will just clarify that this deck is not in any way, shape, or form good. Do not take it to a tournament. I was just trying to play around with an old idea I had about 2 years ago and see how I could update it to make it a little bit better. And turns out it was a little bit better than I thought it would be initially. This deck is based around the Hatterene from Rebel Clash, with its incredible Mind Hat ability, allowing each player to discard a card from their hand. Fun fact, if either player has 0 cards in hand, you can use this ability as well. So you can actually, if you have 0 cards in hand and your opponent has cards in hand, you can discard nothing and force your opponent to discard cards from their hand, which is very cool. And we're also basing it around the Dripping Grudge attack. Put 1 damage counter on your opponent's active for each Pokemon in your discard pile. Now this is the base around attack for the deck, but let me just clarify that this is possibly one of the worst attacks ever printed on a Pokemon card in the modern era. It is incredibly bad. This card really only is good because of the support going around it and the fact it's a psychic type. Without that, it just has absolutely no legs. But we're trying to work with what we got here. Dripping Grudge is unfortunately, 1 damage counter means it's also not, the fact that it's placing damage counters means it's not hitting weakness on anything and can get instantly blocked. So if you see people playing like the Hoods and the new Umbrella card that everyone's playing in Standard to block Yveltal Amazing Rare, you just lose instantly. And it's really unfortunate, but we don't have the room to play around it even, so just scoop if you see them, right? And the fact it's a damage modifier is incredibly low. If you'd notice, back in the X and Y era, when HPs were about half of where they were now, we had a very good card with this kind of attack, Vespiquen, with the B Revenge attack, which did 20 plus 10, meaning it hit weakness, and it also did 20 more on a stage 1, like 7, 8 almost years ago. Yeah, this card's really tough to make work. Absolutely gorgeous artwork, by the way, by Kagemaru Himeno. I tried to make it work 2 years ago. I was able to get a little bit more success now because of some new cards we've come out and the new way I've built it. Let's talk about how we did it. So, starting off, we got 4 copies of Wobbuffet with the Bide Barricade. Absolutely have to have this card. If it's your active Pokemon, each player's Pokemon in play, hand, and discard pile have no abilities except for Psychic Pokemon, so you can use your Psychic abilities behind Wobbuffet, but your opponent cannot use any of theirs. I will keep in mind when you're playing this Wobbuffet that it does turn off your Execute because it is not a Psychic type, so be careful with that. Psychic Assault is also a pretty good attack in this deck just because of the way it functions, because Hatterene almost never hits for 1-hit KOs. So Psychic Assault does 10 plus 10 for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So Wobbuffet's just an all-around great card. You want to sit behind this and buy for time at the beginning of the game. But you also need it removed from your field, which can be tough because sometimes your opponent just doesn't want to remove it because it only really works as a late-game attacker in some scenarios. So 4 copies of Hatterene. Find a friend, search your deck for a Pokemon, and reveal it, put it into your hand. This is the best Hatterene. There's just a regular set version of this, so just play that. Or there's also a shiny version. I just like this artwork, so I play this promo version. So they're super cheap. If you want to trade for the promo version, it's very shiny and nice. There is a 90 HP Hatterene, but we play the 80 HP one because it's got the best attack. Spiral Drain does 30 and heal 30 from this Pokemon. Again, there is a 90 HP one with a worse attack. Personally, I like this artwork better, and this 90 HP one, it's just 90 HP isn't worth like a way worse attack right here. I've actually taken KOs with Spiral Drain before, so it does actually hit for weakness, so unlike this Dripping Grudge, it actually can take good knockouts with weakness. Again, we got the 4 copies of Hatterene. We went 4-3-4 here because we do play rare candies. I would not go any less than 4-3-4 because I had a game where I prized 2 Hatterene when I was only playing 2. So I just couldn't play any stage 1s, and the game was almost impossible to set up in. So 4-3-4 feels pretty good. Again, this deck, you need a lot of Pokemon anyway, so you just play pretty heavy copies of all the good Pokemon. Next up, we got the Dusknoir line. We got 3 copies of the Duskull with Spirit-Born Evolution. Discard 3 cards from your hand, search your deck for a card that evolves from it. I don't find myself using this ability as much as I'd like, just because you almost never have like the opening 2 executes in hand. You could potentially play Battle Compressor to enable that. However, I don't believe it's worth it to play Battle Compressor because you're going to end up shooting your consistency and not having things to Mind Hat if your Wobbuffet's active. So you do still want to Mind Hat behind Wobbuffet, even though you're not getting Execute's ability while your opponent's struggling to set up. You just want to keep that Wob out for as long as possible and give you time to set up like multiple stage 2s, 3 or 4 stage 2s. So Spirit Born Evolution is pretty good, though. It can allow you to get an instant evolution. We play this just because it gives us the chance to do it. Unfortunately, if we could play it, we would. Back from the Diamond and Pearl era, there is a really good Duskull that is not legal in the expanded format with the Reaper Cloth that can evolve the turn you play it. Great in 2010, 2009, 2008. Unfortunately, not usable here. We do have an attack on this as well. Put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. I've taken a knockout with it before, so it's an attack that can be used. 40 HP is pretty low, so keep an eye out on that. 2 copies of Dusclops. 90 HP, Fade to Black for 1 is just the best Dusclops because it got 90 HP and it has an okay attack. Can just confuse the opponent. I haven't used its attack ever, but, you know, it's there if you could use it. There's another Dusclops that also just does a confusing attack. But, you know, it's just not that great. Just does confusion for 1 energy and does no damage. So why not play the one that does 30? Could also play the Disable one right here. This one's probably the second best Dusclops as well. Choose one of the opponent's Pokemon's attacks, and that Pokemon can't use the attack. Could potentially put a lock on your opponent. There's a few other ones. This one's just not good. I mean, it could be good, but like you're putting it on your own Pokemon, which I wouldn't recommend. But like you do have a Dusknoir that spreads damage counters, but it's kind of neat. And then everything else is like 80 HP or lower, so like they're not worth using as much. Shout out to Diamond and Pearl. This is the one you'd use in like 2010. This one's pretty good actually. And I might even play this if this was legal for this deck. Even though it has 80 HP, this is a good first attack. Regardless, I'm just getting on my old days, old man stuff. So with this deck gain in 2 years since it came out, primarily this Dusknoir from Brilliant Stars. This is actually originally from Vivid Voltage. I originally played this deck when Rebel Clash came out, and it was just not good. But this card gives us some game. Spectral Breach turns off all special energy, makes them provide colorless. One thing I will note is that it doesn't turn off special energy entirely because, unfortunately, they still provide colorless. So I've had games where I thought I would have a good opportunity to win the game against a Lugia V-Star deck, a more standard version of that deck. But unfortunately, they can just like throw like a billion special energy into play, and it doesn't matter if they're turned off, if they get their Archeops out anyway. How'd they get their Archeops out? Well, they played Silent Lab to kill my Wobbuffet. So, unfortunate there. But it is still really good. I've won some decks against Double Dragon Energy decks, obviously. It's really good against DTE, the Double Colorless Energy, Twin Energy, these energies that you see in Expanded. Triple Acceleration, especially. You know, if you face a deck that just needs to attach 2 energies instead of 1 on, like, weak Pokemon. For instance, I faced a Mad Party deck earlier. I know a meta deck, but I was able to win just because the Special Energy Breach is just so strong on their Pokemon. As well as the Wobbuffet turning off the Ditto was really strong in that game as well. Do play 1 copy of the Dusknoir from Plasma Blast. My original list didn't have this other Dusknoir, so it actually played a 3-2-2 line of this Dusknoir with the Sinister Hand. As often as you like for your during your turn, you may move a damage counter from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another. I actually found this card to not be as useful as it used to be, because you just spend a lot more time setting up with this variant of the deck, getting that Dusknoir in play for the special energy if need be, and then getting like 4 Hatterene set up. But it is still really good. It can give you a lot of checkmate scenarios, and honestly, since Hatterene's attack is, to not mince any words, super shit, you can use it to make sure that you don't waste any damage counters. So in matchups where this card is not useful, you're going to want to get this guy out. I've actually used it to put a checkmate on my opponent as well, where I had a Wobbuffet on the bench with 2 energy. I had 190 damage on their active Pokemon, and I said, hey, I can move this damage anywhere I want, because I had Dusknoir in hand with a Dusclops on the bench, and I have Wobbuffet ready to attack. Like, you're just done and nothing you bring up will survive. So, it's also good for like just moving the damage around if you want to keep something active. Unfortunately, don't play any gusting cards. Again, space in this deck is awful. But if you want to play like a Boss's Orders or a Guzma or Lysander, that was what I would play, you could trap something and then move damage off of it. I would think that'd actually be pretty good. So if you want to go along that lines, again, this deck looks pretty terrible. There's no 2 prizers. There's no like Tapu Lele. There's only 5 supporters, and there's only like 2 different types. This deck is built pretty rigidly because it really doesn't have room to be anything else. So just going off of what I have here. 4 copies of Unknown with the Farewell Letter. If this Pokemon is on your bench, you can discard it and draw a card. It allows you to draw cards behind the Wobbuffet while also powering up... Stop coming over. While also powering up your draw. So, and it makes your Dripping Grudge do more damage. I absolutely would not play the deck without Unknown. You could try to go for the Unknown Rescue Carrier engine here. I don't think you have enough room to do that, so I didn't. Again, this deck is way too tight on space. If you want to play a Tapu Lele in here, try it. I did 2 years ago, and Tapu Lele got Guzma'd for game every single time. So I just don't play Tapu Lele in this variant anymore and just hope you get a good opening hand. Again, this deck is not good. 2 copies of Execute, Propagation. If this Pokemon's a discard pile, you may put this Pokemon into your hand. Just allows you to pick up the Pokemon and use it over and over. Mind Hat can discard Execute, and then you can just free discard with Execute while your opponent has to discard cards. Even if your opponent has an Execute, they're not going to be able to probably do multiple propagations to block your Mind Hats. You'll eventually start hitting cards that are good. Your opponent does get to choose. Sometimes the Mind Hats are not good. You can see we don't have any hand disruption in here. It is really unfortunate, but honestly, we just want to play discard draw. You could maybe tech in like N or Ace Trainer or Roxanne into this deck. The only thing that's maybe cuttable is the energy, but honestly, I found myself needing an energy attachment every turn just to move things around the board where I need them and have attackers ready. But if you're going to cut anywhere, it'd probably be the energy. Probably cut down to like 6 copies maybe. 4 copies of Research, discard, draw 7. Very obvious, like best consistency supporter ever printed. Way too good for its own good that we have to play 4 because we're playing a deck that wants Pokemon in this card battle anyway. This deck really just needs the consistency, so 4 copies seems extreme in an expanded format where, you know, everything's like 2s and 1s, but it's pretty good to play 4 copies of Research, and I found myself thanking myself for it. Again, if you want to play like Ace Trainer, that's cool. It's dead on turn 1. N is cool, but you're also giving your opponent a bigger hand size early game, which I don't like, though you could limit it late game. That'd probably be the biggest thing I'd include immediately would be like an N if I were to change this list, but I don't, I just don't like N in a specific deck, honestly. I found a lot of trouble even getting set up in the first place, and again, if you put like things like Tapu Lele in here, that just ends up being your lost con. You really do have to force 6 prizes in this deck. You'll notice we also don't have a spec in this deck. I couldn't really decide which one to use. I used Computer Search and it was fine. I used Life Dew and it was fine. So I just took it out and I was like, hey, we'll make it a budget deck, right? So if you want to play an A-Spec, Computer Search works just fine. You know, drop an Ultra Ball for a Computer Search. There you go. Dowsing Machine, you could play. If you do play Dowsing Machine, I'd probably go a different supporter line just because you want to play ones to recover with Dowsing Machine. I just didn't really like any of the A-Specs that much in this deck. Any more than that. So here is a friendly budget deck, right? So yeah, do it as you please. 4 copies of Mysterious Treasure. Wait, we didn't cover Clara. 1 copy of Clara. Put up to 2 Pokemon from this pile into your hand. To put up to 2 energy cards from this pile into your hand. This deck absolutely needs Clara. And the games I lose are almost always because Clara's in the bottom of the deck and I don't draw it until like the bottom 3 cards. It's happened unfortunately multiple times, which is really odd. I don't know how that keeps happening to me. Clara is possibly the most important addition other than Dusknoir that we've gotten in the 2 years since I built this original idea. Clara just keeps you going. In the early game, it can be used to recover unknowns to allow you to draw more cards because you can get 2 of these back. It also can get discard synergy because you can pick up things like energies. If you're behind a Wob and you can't get your executes back, you can Clara for like things like energies to discard, which is really, really good. Yeah, Clara's kind of fun. I really like Clara. Getting Pokemon back is really good. It seems, you know, kind of against the point when you're building a deck to get Pokemon in the discard pile. But believe it or not, you need to have your Dusknoir in play every turn against special energy decks, and you need to have like 3 or 4 Hatterenes in play at all times. So recovery can be quite important. 4 copies of Mysterious Treasure. Discard a card from your hand. Search deck for a Psychic or Dragon. Don't play any Dragons. If you want to find space for your favorite Dragon Pokemon, you know, why not? I'd really love if a Psychic had a Pokemon like Dragon Call Gabite, just to show what that card does. Search your deck for a Dragon Pokemon once per turn on a Stage 1. If we had a Psychic Pokemon with this, I'd probably play a 1/1 line just to get value out of it every single turn. We do not have this, so we don't play it. If there's any other Psychic Pokemon you want to put in here, you can see we don't play any Stadiums either because we couldn't fit it. You could potentially play Pumpkaboo, but then it's stuck on your bench the whole game. You could potentially play... there is the Oricorio, which searches energy let's just show these cards while we go. Here's Pumpkaboo. Pumpkaboo is from Evolving Skies. Pumpkin Pit discards a Stadium. There is the Oricorio from... where is it? Yep, here we are with the Vital Dance. Even if you want to play it, like, again, Stage 2s are going to totally destroy you, but if you want to play Oricorio GX, go ahead. Another thing this deck could potentially use is, like, some recovery cards. Again, this is just a base list. I'm really just kind of putting this out here. And I even took out an ace-spec just to make it budget. But I really don't know what to do with the list anymore. I've played it on ladder, played it, got about a 40% win rate with the deck, which isn't great, but more than I was expecting, honestly, with how bad it is. So do whatever you want with the list, make something out of it. Yeah, that's what I put these lists out for anyway. 4 copies Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from your answer deck for a Pokemon reveal and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterward. So just a great all Pokemon search, and since you have Executes, the discard hardly matters. Also, it powers up your Dripping Grudge attack. Yeah, by the way, just feel free to change any of my lists if you see them in the video, besides the ones that, like, when I state a list is perfect, I will tell you that. Like, Volcarona V, that list is flawless, and you should not edit it in any way. That list is legitimately flawless, but, like, when it comes to lists that I'm like, I don't know, this is just kind of a fun idea that I tried out, yeah, I'll tell you that. 4 copies of Rare Candy, choose one of your basic Pokemon to play. If you have a Stage 2 in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, put it onto the basic Pokemon to evolve it. So this is really, really good, because we need to evolve our Stage 2s. You can see we play lots of Stage 2s in this deck. Yeah, there's some other Hatterenes, actually, that I should talk about while we're here. There is this one is legitimately awful, but there is one that allows you to switch, essentially gives an escape rope effect. I considered this, however, it's just kind of bad. So, yeah, Psychic is actually like a not bad attack, though, so maybe you do want to put that in your deck. I don't know. Why does a Stage 2 of 130 HP in this God's year of 2023? I could not tell you why Pokemon hates Stage 2 so much. For a reference here, this has 130 HP. Back in the Diamond and Pearl era, here's a Stage 1 Gyarados from Stormfront with 130 HP. And this was from 2008, like 14 years later, and apparently Stage 2s still have the same HP. This at least has 150, but still pitiful, miserable HPs. Why do they hate Stage 2 so much? 4 copies of VS Seeker. This is just to reuse our draw cards and reuse Clara. Clara gets the one that's reused a lot. Again, if you want to put N in here and stuff like that, go ahead, be my guest. Do what you want with the list, and maybe you can make it more successful than I did. 2 copies of Floatstone. Pokemon with card attached who has no retreat cost. Yeah, Floatstone's just kind of fun. I like Floatstone. I like being able to move my Pokemon. This guy's kind of fat, got 3 retreat cost. Love this artwork, by the way. I'm very glad to have pulled this online. Own one in real life, too. And you can put it even on your Wobbuffets to pivot out of Wobbuffet if need be. Though usually you just let Wobbuffet die before you pivot out of it. 8 copies of Psychic. Again, you can move this down if you want to go like -2 and then add like N. Well, I'm not going to be able to search N, am I? We'll just put Ace Trainer just so I can actually search it, because N is impossible to search with all these websites. So if you wanted to go down to and add like Ace Trainer, and then the other card I would maybe consider would be like a Gusting card, so we'll do Guzma, for instance. Like, you could just do those two. You could maybe even drop it down to 5 and add like a, you know, like a Super Rod or something like that. Ordinary Rod. Maybe something to even like put cards back in your deck. So like Pidgeot, if anyone knows Pidgeot V, this card right here. Because one issue you do with this deck sometimes is that the game's going a long time, so you could deck out. So you could essentially play this. Again, if you're going to play it in A-Spec, I just cut the 4th Ultra Ball, and you can play anything from Dowsing Machine to Computer Search, right here. And even like Life Do, right here. Trying to think of some other A-Specs. What are some good A-Specs? Those are like the 3 main ones. Honestly, like the rest of the A-Specs aren't that good in this deck. So, could play Master Ball. There you go. That's another one that exists, right? So if you have Master Ball and you have no other A-Specs that you want to play in this deck, there you go. Again, this list is kind of just a starting grounds. I really didn't know what to do with this deck. So I started playing it the other day, and I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. It's actually a little bit like has some game, because Spectral Breach is such a really good ability. that if you can keep it and play the whole game against special energy reliant decks and just deny them their hand so they're not able to gust things, that this deck can actually be pretty good. So yeah, give it a try. Maybe you can change around some cards and make it more successful than I was able to. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be playing a ton of PTCGO because I'm going to be going back to school within a week. So I just want to get this idea out here on the channel. Maybe I'll make a few more expanded lists before I go back. Who knows? Thank you all guys so much for watching, though. I'll have more tabletop gameplay soon, so if you like that, make sure to stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and maybe some expanded deck profiles here and there, though I really don't have time to do them much anymore. So thank you guys so much for watching.